Hello, it's Tracy Farquhar here with this week's tarot reading. Today is April 21st, and for today's reading, I did something a little different, which was to focus on a particular issue that can affect all of us. So, my focus today is on the current state of our country and the best way that we can handle what's going on right now. And this is what I got. So, as usual, I pulled four cards. The first three represent past, present, and future. The last card is what I call an action card, and it sums up the entire reading. So, the first card in the past position in my deck, it looks like this. The deck that I use is the Barbara Walker deck. Seven of Pentacles has come up in the past. And in my deck, the word on that card is failure. As with all tarot cards, there's very little about the symbolism that can be taken literally. So the idea of failure is the emphasis here, what we may believe to be failure. But I think this card coming up in the past is encouraging us to consider what the idea of failure means to us. Because most of the time, the challenges that we are presented with are offering some kind of opportunity for change, an opportunity to bring things to light. And even in our own personal situations, when we look at our past, we will tend to focus on the things that we feel have failed. And I think it's human nature for us to do that because we are problem solvers. We want to fix things and we want to not repeat the things that we deem as failures. But the thing is, if we're focusing only on what we think has failed, we're missing the opportunity to learn from that challenge. So, in looking at the things that have been going on in our country, in politics, in leadership, I think it's very appropriate for us to really make sure that as much as we can, we're looking at the things that haven't worked out the way we had hoped, or the things that we think are failures, and say, what can we learn from this? How can we progress from that point and create something better? What is it teaching us about what needs to change? If we learn from something that hasn't worked, if we learn from a challenge, typically we won't have to repeat that because we will use it as motivation to create something different, something better, something that's more in line with our intentions. So when we look at the things that are going on, that have gone on, and we can identify what hasn't worked, let's ask ourselves, well, what's going to be better than that? And how can we participate as civilians, as a collective, as individuals, to create something better in our world, in our country, in the way things are run? In fact, in my channeled books, this comes up a lot from the group that I channeled called Frank. They talked a lot about the need to create new systems. So the next card in the present position, believe it or not, came up as the devil. Once again, this is not a literal symbol here. All of the tarot has symbols in it that represent something else. To me, the devil represents illusion and a sense of habit. And that habit can be about believing in the illusion. So when you think of the symbol of the devil, it's a sense of evil. It is a sense of this looming, powerful force. Um, and the thing with that kind of belief, that kind of illusion, is that we'll believe it. We believe that we are not powerful enough to overcome that kind of power, that kind of evil. Okay. the illusion there is that we're not powerful. The illusion is that this is something we can't overcome. This is something evil. So this is kind of tricky to talk about, but I think it's wanting us to understand that the sense of giving up our power is an illusion. The sense that we need to turn over our power to something else or someone else or some other institution isn't true. And if we kind of cower under that belief, then what we fear becomes a reality. In other words, if we surrender our own power to some illusion, that illusion starts to become real. So I think it's a really, really powerful card to come up here in the present, because it's saying, where are your beliefs? Where is your sense of confidence in yourself, in us as a collective? What can you shift around the belief that this powerful force is insurmountable, whatever you want to call that insurmountable force, okay? Because the truth is that we are powerful. And the truth is that we get to determine how much of that power to turn over to an individual, a group, an institution. That doesn't mean that there isn't power in authority figures, that there isn't power in the way our system is set up. But I keep hearing that that song in my head, the power to the people. We are a powerful force. And the sense here is that what we believe in as good, what we believe in as the opposite of this kind of evil figure of the devil, is so much more powerful than the illusion of that negative force. I hope that makes sense, because it's not really that complicated, but it is hard to put into words that don't sound too harsh. Let's put it that way. So it's something to consider. I think it's something, it's wanting us to think about our definition of, just like that first card is our definition of failure, our definition of whatever we deem to be a powerful negative force, such as the devil, and see if we can start to shift that. And again, as the first card encourages, think about what it is that we would prefer, what's going to work better for us. If something is so out of whack with our internal system of compassion and care and love for each other, what can we do to continue to create more power around what we believe humanity should be about? Sometimes the best thing we can do is just be that person who is compassionate and kind and cares for others. Don't think that that's not powerful. Okay. Don't think that you are such a small part of this story that you have no influence and no power. Okay. I think that's the big message here. The third card is the King of Pentacles. This has come up in the future. This is a very interesting card to come up here. So the King energy in tarot is that mature, wise person who has experience, who has a lot to share. The masculine energy is usually a very assertive kind of energy, not necessarily aggressive, but this kind of assertive, wise force. Sometimes in the tarot, the King and Queen cards can be seen to represent actual people. And while I don't always get that, In fact, I kind of rarely get that when I'm doing readings for individual people. I kind of get that here as the future. So if this card does represent an actual person coming into the picture in the state of our country here, as I set the intention about, it's a very positive sense that it's possible some new type of leader can come in, one that has a lot of experience, a lot of wisdom, not a king, but that sense of what the king represents is confidence and leadership, and that they have earned that sense of leadership through their lifetime, through their experience, through the things that they have done and studied. And, so to me, it feels like there's a possibility that that could evolve. This is the future. I'm not going to say when, because, I don't think that's something I can predict. But the other thing about this card, as I said, the masculine energy has a lot to do with our thinking minds, our sense of confidence and assertiveness. But on this card in my deck, there's also that really highlighted third eye, if you see that, which to me is also a sign of higher energy. Third eye is about intuition and insight and clear seeing. So the combination of what we deem to be that kind of feminine energy, which is, the higher senses, the intuitive senses, the emotional sense, the heart wisdom, combined with this assertive, confident energy, is the sense to me of a very strong leader. And to me, this card is saying that this is possible. The last card is the Hermit, and this is the card that wraps everything up. And the Hermit has come up upside down in this place. The Hermit, you think of the Hermit as a symbol. The Hermit goes off and lives in a cave somewhere, withdraws from society, creates some sense of solitude. And the way I read a reversed card is that it is an internal thing rather than an external thing. So it kind of emphasizes that sense of going within. And I think it makes a lot of sense with what we've already talked about with the first three cards. It's asking you to really get a sense and a feeling about what you feel is possible, what you want to see happen for us as a collective in this country, in the world, and really trust what your intuition and inner voice is telling you, because we are being heavily influenced in thinking a certain way with all of the barrage of news stories and media that's out there. We don't realize how highly influential that is on our mindset. So how do you tell what the real truth is? How do you tell what's the right thing to believe? You go within and you check in with yourself and say, okay, this is my intention for my life, for us as a collective, for this country, for the world. Does what I'm hearing and, getting thrown at me feel like it's in harmony with that intention? Does it feel like what I'm seeing is truth? And if so, let me go within to get the guidance for the best way to respond to that. And so, in the times where we feel like we're not powerful, which is very prevalent right now and completely understandable, we need to go within and say, what's the best for me as an individual, for my well being, for my peace of mind? And what is the best way for me to contribute to what's going on? Only you know that. Okay, you can get suggestions and advice from all kinds of different sources, but the Hermit is saying make sure that your beliefs, the places where you're focusing your thoughts, are in harmony with what you feel is best, what is in, again, your highest good as an individual and what you feel is the highest good of the collective that you are a very influential part of. Again, never think that you're not influential. So trust yourself is what it's saying. Trust yourself to know what's best. But not necessarily from just what you're thinking, but from what you're feeling, sensing, intuiting. And the only way to do that is to kind of withdraw a little bit sometimes. That doesn't mean you have to go live in a cave like the hermit, but sometimes we need to shut off the news. Sometimes we need to walk away from social media and shut the computer and just take some time to ourselves, just to kind of recharge, but also to reconnect. Okay, well, I hope you got something useful out of that reading. Always check tracyfarquhar.com to see what else I've got going on. And I'll see you next week. Thanks again. Bye.